Welcome back, American Coin Hunter. Today's video is going to take you deep into the world of the 1987 D. Lincoln cent, a simple copper-plated zinc penny that most people completely ignore, but a coin that hides secrets, errors, mysteries, and a collector demand that shocks even longtime numismatists. When people think about valuable pennies, they think about the 1909 SVDB, the 1914 D, or maybe the famous 1943 bronze cent. But hardly anyone realizes how special certain 1987 D cents can be, especially when you start to understand the error types, the production history, the design evolution, the minting conditions, and the unexpected market explosions that turn a handful of these coins into pieces worth life-changing money. And the story becomes even more unbelievable when we talk about the rarest discovered error example theoretically hitting the insane valuation of $234 million in private collector rumors, a figure that seems impossible, unrealistic, and absolutely mind-blowing, yet represents the extreme high-end market fantasy condition for a one-of-a-kind minting anomaly. So sit back and imagine holding a coin produced in the Denver Mint in 1987, a coin weighing only 2.50 grams, a coin made of copper-plated zinc with a thin layer of 100% copper over a zinc core, a coin with a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, a coin struck by high-speed presses running at incredible production rates, a cent that millions of Americans spent without a second thought, never imagining that some of these cents held errors capable of reaching astronomical values. When you hold a 1987 D cent, you hold a piece of the Lincoln Memorial design era, a period defined by Frank Gasparo's reverse artwork showing the full Lincoln Memorial in stunning detail, a design created to honor not only Abraham Lincoln, but also the architectural symbolism of unity and national strength. On the obverse, Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait sits proudly, a design first introduced in 1909 and still in use in 1987. Making these small cents historical bridges connecting over 7 decades of American minting tradition. The obverse bears the familiar inscriptions, Liberty to the left of Lincoln, the date 1987 to the right, and the mint mark D for the Denver Mint, placed just below the date. Above, the motto I in God We Trust appears in its classic position. The reverse features United States of America along the top, the motto E Pluribus Unum between the top inscriptions, and the memorial building, and 1 cent boldly presented at the bottom. These design elements form the structure of a coin that, to the ordinary person, seems completely ordinary, but to collectors and error hunters becomes a treasure map of potential misstrikes, doubled dies, off-centers, repunched mint marks, die chips, die clashes, broad strikes, and other rare anomalies. The 1987 D cent had a massive mintage of more than 4 billion coins, which makes the idea of rarity seem impossible. But rarity does not always come from low mintage. Rarity often comes from mistakes, unexpected, unintentional, unnoticed minting errors created through rapid production, worn dies, damaged hubs, improperly aligned machinery, or accidental physical disruptions in the minting process. When billions of coins are produced, even extremely rare errors can emerge, because even if one coin in a billion is struck with a major error, that's still potentially 4 rare examples in the 1987 D mintage. But these examples are incredibly difficult to find today because they circulated heavily, were used in vending machines, thrown into jars, mixed in banks, and many were simply lost. The surviving major errors today are astonishing discoveries found by coin roll hunters, metal detectorists, inherited collections, and lucky people who happened to pick up something unusual before spending it. Collectors today are willing to pay shocking amounts for the right error. Even a small doubling on the date or mint mark can raise the value significantly. A clear, dramatic off-center strike can turn an ordinary cent into a piece worth hundreds. A full brockage or a major die cap can push values into the thousands. But the true legends are the extreme mint errors, double-struck off-the-center combinations, bonded sets, transitional planchet strikes, and full reverse brockage obverse strikes in pristine, uncirculated condition. These kinds of errors are so rare that most collectors will never see even one in their lifetimes. Imagine the Denver Mint in 1987. High-speed Schuler presses are slamming die faces into blank copper-plated zinc discs at a rate of hundreds of coins per minute. The mint was operating intensely to meet circulating coin demand, and during such high production periods, die wear becomes common, hub distortions appear, and even slight alignment issues can cause unexpected doubling. Most of these doubled dies never make it into official databases because they were extremely minor, quickly replaced, or not recognized by collectors. But the existence of undocumented doubled dies is absolutely real. In nearly every large mintage year, some minor doubled dies go unnoticed for decades until someone finds a random coin in a roll that displays a clear doubling on Liberty or on the date. The 1987 D series is no exception, and those undocumented errors can be extremely valuable because they are often one of a kind. Now let's talk about the weight and composition of the 1987 D cent because the composition plays a significant role in understanding error formation. Since 1982, the U.S. Mint switched from 95% copper coins weighing 3.11 grams to copper-plated zinc coins weighing 2.50 grams. The new core made the coins cheaper to produce, but also more prone to certain types of errors. Zinc is soft, reactive, and easily damaged. The copper plating can blister, bubble, split, or peel when struck incorrectly or when the zinc core expands due to trapped gas or internal defects. Planchet errors like plating bubbles, lamination cracks, and split plating became more common after the switch to zinc cores. This means the 1987 D cent is part of the early zinc era where mint quality was still adjusting, making error production more frequent than in later decades when quality control improved. Because the coin weighs only 2.50 grams, even a tiny change in planchet preparation could create dramatic effects. For example, if the copper plating was too thin on one area, you might see a plating crack or a weak strike. If the zinc core had a bubble or impurity, striking could create a raised blister that collectors today often confuse with damage, even though certain blister patterns can be mint-produced. And then there's the infamous cud error, which happens when a piece of the die face breaks off, leaving a blank area that produces a raised blob of metal on the coin's rim or design. Cuds from the 1980s are highly collectible, and the 1987 D series has documented cud varieties that collectors actively search for. A large cud can turn a 1-cent piece into one worth hundreds, and if the cud is dramatic and crisp, the price can climb even higher. Now imagine this. You have a coin that not only features a dramatic cud, but also includes a doubled reverse, a misaligned obverse die, and a second strike rotated 90 degrees. This type of multi-error combination becomes a numismatic miracle, something that happens maybe once every 30 or 40 years across billions of coins. And it's the discovery of one such multi-error coin from the 1987 D series that sparked the outrageous $234 million rumor, a private collector urban legend that collectors still whisper about in rare coin circles. The story goes that a hyper-wealthy investor, obsessed with mint errors, offered an unimaginably high figure for a one-of-one transitional mint error that should not exist under any circumstances. Even though no public sale has ever confirmed this number, the myth alone created market hype around the idea that some 1987 D coins could be worth life-changing money if the right error exists. As we continue deeper into the hidden world of the 1987 D Lincoln cent, it becomes impossible not to think about how many of these coins passed through millions of hands, sat unnoticed in drawers, fell between couch cushions, disappeared into piggy banks, or rolled across store counters without anyone realizing that a few extremely rare examples contained errors that would one day become the obsession of collectors and treasure hunters. When we talk about a coin minted in the billions, the first instinct is to assume that nothing about it could possibly be rare or valuable. But that assumption collapses immediately when you begin to understand how errors form, how many unique conditions are required for a major error to occur, and how incredibly low the survival rate of such error coins actually is. It's like looking at a vast ocean and assuming every drop is the same, not realizing that somewhere in that ocean is a diamond that only one diver out of millions might ever find. Think about the Denver Mint in 1987 producing these cents in enormous quantities. The machinery was operating nonstop, the die pairs were being switched out regularly, oiling and maintenance were happening continuously, and human workers were monitoring the automated process with one eye on quality control and the other on maintaining production speed. The pressure to meet coin demand remained constant. This environment makes it inevitable that some errors escape. A slight die rotation, even a few degrees, creates a rotated die error that collectors today highly prize. If you flip a rotated die coin and the reverse is not aligned perfectly at the 12 o'clock position, that coin is already special. The more dramatic the rotation, the more valuable it becomes. A 90-degree rotated die on a 1987 D-cent could easily turn into a coin worth thousands depending on grade and condition. Now imagine the intensity of the minting environment. Vibrations from heavy machinery, slight shifts in die alignment, and the exhaustion of dies continuously striking planchets all day long create microscopic imperfections. These imperfections, when repeated over millions of strikes, turn into die cracks, die chips, or even full die breaks. And while small die chips may not bring huge value, major ones, such as the famous B error between the letters B and E in Liberty, are sought-after varieties. In some cases, these chips are large enough to completely alter the appearance of Lincoln's face, create raised metal blobs on the rim, or produce strange shapes that collectors love because they give each coin a unique character. Collectors often ask why errors can bring such enormous prices even when the base coin is common. The answer lies in the idea of uniqueness. A single dramatic error is not just a coin. It's a one-of-a-kind piece of history representing a moment when billions of coins were being produced flawlessly except for one shocking anomaly. Imagine finding a 1987 D Lincoln cent where the copper plating has split on the reverse, revealing the zinc core beneath, forming a perfect line from the roof of the Lincoln Memorial down to the base of the steps. If this plating split happens during the strike, not after circulation, it becomes a mint error rather than damage, and the value can jump dramatically. If the coin also has a strong strike and no post-mint damage, the price increases even more. And if the plating split forms a shape or pattern, like the outline of a state or a recognizable symbol, collectors sometimes pay absurd premiums just for the novelty. The more you study error coins, the more you realize that each one has its own story. Each piece is the result of a specific moment inside the mint when the machinery interacted with the planchet in a way that defied expectations. Every crack, bubble, chip, or misstrike becomes a frozen moment of history, preserved forever in metal. For the 1987 D-cent, one of the rarest categories is the full strike-through error. This happens when a foreign object, like a piece of wire, a fragment of another coin, a thread, or even bits of cloth from mint bags, gets trapped between the dies and the planchet during striking. The object leaves a clear impression on the coin, creating marks or shapes that do not belong on a regular strike. A full strike-through with a perfectly preserved pattern can fetch enormous prices because it tells an unmistakable story of something unexpected entering the minting press at precisely the wrong time. Imagine a 1987 D-cent where a tiny fragment of a mint worker's glove got stuck on the planchet just before it was struck. The glove fiber would embed into the coin's surface, leaving a textured pattern across Lincoln's coat or the fields. If the coin remains uncirculated, the strike-through pattern remains sharp, creating a collectible error piece that only becomes more valuable as time passes. Some collectors specialize exclusively in strike-through errors, and they are willing to pay thousands for dramatic examples. A piece of wire embedded across the reverse columns of the Lincoln Memorial can turn a penny into a prized showpiece. Another category of errors that brings significant interest is the die clash. This happens when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them. The force of the impact causes elements of each die to transfer onto the opposite die. The next planchet struck by those damaged dies will carry ghost-like images of the opposite design. A strong die clash can show Lincoln's outline behind the columns of the memorial or the steps of the memorial faintly appearing on Lincoln's cheek. Die clashes from 1987 D exist, but strong, dramatic clash dies are extremely rare. Strong die clashes can reach impressive prices, especially in high grade. Now think about the double strike errors. Picture a coin that gets struck once, lands slightly out of position, and then gets struck again with the second strike partially overlapping the first. The result is a coin where part of Lincoln's portrait appears shifted or doubled, with two visible dates, two sets of lettering, and two impressions of the reverse design. If the second strike occurs off-center, the coin becomes even more visually striking. These types of errors often sell for hundreds, and in some cases thousands, depending on clarity and drama. A perfectly preserved double strike where both impressions are strong and uncirculated can create a bidding war among collectors, especially for pre-1990 zinc cents where dramatic errors are scarcer than earlier copper-era pieces. The excitement around the 1987 decent also comes from the increasing popularity of modern-era collecting. For decades, collectors focused mostly on early American coins, ignoring newer pennies. But recently, younger collectors and YouTube channels have fueled a wave of interest in modern mint errors. People now search through bank boxes, coin machine bags, and collections for hidden treasures. Millions of videos online show hobbyists discovering off-centers, cuds, and brockage in rolls of ordinary-looking pennies. The thrill of surprise has revived the modern error market, causing prices to skyrocket for coins that once went unnoticed. As we continue exploring the mystery, excitement, and unimaginable potential hiding inside the 1987 Lincoln cent, the deeper truth becomes clearer. The value of a coin is not only about condition or rarity, but about the story that surrounds it, the moment it represents, and the extraordinary circumstances that create something unforgettable in the coin collecting world. Every collector knows that finding an error coin is not just a financial discovery, but an emotional one. When someone finds a rare 1987 error in a pocket, a jar, or a roll of coins from the bank, that moment becomes a memory that stays forever. This emotional connection is one of the key reasons values skyrocket, because every great collectible market is powered not only by rarity, but by passion, excitement, and the thrill of the hunt. Imagine you're holding a small pile of pennies fresh from a coin machine, and one single coin catches your eye because the rim looks slightly thicker on one side or the portrait of Lincoln seems shifted just a little. You turn it, inspect it, and then your heart stops for a moment when you realize the date is 1987 and the strike looks off-center. That instant rush, that feeling that something incredibly rare might be in your hand, is what drives collectors to spend years searching. And that emotional element plays a huge role in value, especially when collectors with deep pockets feel the same thrill when they acquire something spectacular. Money follows emotion, and emotion is at the heart of rare error coins. The 1987 cent is often underrated, but those who truly understand the design, the minting context, and the known error possibilities know that this year holds secrets waiting to be uncovered. Think about the copper-plated zinc composition again. This material, which replaced the older 95% copper composition, behaves differently under pressure. Zinc is far softer than copper, and the thin plating can stretch, deform, or rupture in ways copper never did. This means the potential for minting errors increased significantly after 1982, even though minting technology was constantly improving. During 1987, equipment at the Denver Mint was still adapting to long-term zinc production, and the sheer volume of coins produced allowed room for unusual anomalies. For example, plating bubbles were extremely common in the early years of zinc cents, but dramatic and perfectly formed plating bubbles are far less common. These bubbles can appear as raised, dome-like features on the surface of the coin. If the bubble forms during the heating and striking process inside the mint, it becomes a mint error. But if it forms after circulation due to corrosion, it's simply damage. The key difference is clarity and sharpness. A true mint-made plating bubble can increase the value of the coin dramatically if it is visually striking, centered, or large. Some collectors prize bubbles that appear to form recognizable shapes. It may sound strange, but humans love patterns, and when a bubble looks like a map, a symbol, or even an object, the value skyrockets purely due to visual appeal. Collectors also pay close attention to the quality of the strike. Weak strikes in 1987 cents can occur when dies are worn or improperly spaced. A weak strike means certain details of the Lincoln Memorial appear faint or missing. Sometimes the center columns blend together or the steps lack definition. When a weak strike is combined with other errors, the value increases substantially. And then there are the opposite cases, extremely sharp strikes with unusually strong details. These can indicate fresh dies or better than normal press alignment. Some collectors love hunting for these high-quality strike examples, Because in a year with billions of coins minted, finding one flawless coin becomes a special achievement. Another error category worth exploring is misaligned die strikes. A misaligned die occurs when one of the dies shifts slightly out of correct position. If the obverse die is misaligned, the obverse design appears shifted toward the rim while the reverse remains normal. These coins can be dramatic, especially when the shift is significant but not so extreme that the design gets cut off. Misaligned dies create an alluring visual effect that collectors often pay premiums for, and in the zinc era, these errors are especially interesting because the thin copper plating sometimes stretches differently, revealing additional texture and giving the error a distinct appearance. Now let's talk about off-metal errors, some of the rarest and most valuable errors ever produced. An off-metal error happens when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination. This can include cents struck on dime planchets, which makes the coin lighter, smaller, and missing parts of the design because the dime planchet cannot accommodate the full cent strike. Imagine a 1987 D-cent struck on a dime planchet weighing only 2.27 grams instead of 2.50 grams. The reverse would appear cut off, the memorial incomplete, and the lettering partially missing. An error like this would easily fetch thousands or even tens of thousands depending on condition. Even rarer is the possibility of a cent struck on a foreign coin planchet. The Denver Mint in the 1980s occasionally produced coins for foreign governments, and leftover foreign planchets sometimes ended up in U.S. presses by mistake. If a 1987 D. Lincoln cent exists struck on a foreign planchet, the value would be astronomical. These coins are practically unknown for this year, but unknown does not mean impossible, and this uncertainty is what keeps collectors constantly searching. Then we move to die deterioration errors. As dies age, they begin to show flow lines and cracks, which eventually transfer onto the struck coins. Sometimes die deterioration produces doubling known as machine doubling or mechanical doubling. While this type of doubling is generally considered less valuable and is not the same as a true doubled die, some examples of dramatic machine doubling still attract collector interest. A 1987 D cent with strong mechanical doubling on the date or lettering can create a visually striking effect that may still appeal to collectors seeking unusual examples. But the crown jewel of all doubling errors is the true doubled die. And while no major doubled die is currently officially attributed for 1987 D, that does not mean one does not exist. Many doubled dies from modern years remain undiscovered for decades because they are subtle or because collectors overlook them. A doubled die occurs during the die-making process, when the design transfers onto the die more than once in misaligned impressions. If a single strong doubled die exists for the 1987 D cent, especially on the date, mint mark area, Liberty, or the Lincoln Memorial columns, that coin would instantly become one of the most valuable modern doubled die cents ever found. A dramatic doubled die could easily bring 5 or 6 figures, and if it were the only known example, the price could rise even higher. Now imagine combining that doubled die with another major error like a struck-through or off-center strike. This is where true legendary coins are born. A multi-error coin with doubling, a dramatic off-center strike, and a strong blockage impression would be considered a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. The reason the mythical $234 million rumor exists is because collectors understand that the probability of such a multi-layered error is so incredibly low that if one does exist, it is essentially priceless. Let's reflect on how transitional errors play into this. Transitional errors occur when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different year or composition. For cents, the biggest transitional shift occurred in 1982 when copper cents transitioned to zinc cents. Transitional errors from 1983 and 1984 have been found. If even one stray copper planchet remained at the Denver Mint in 1987 and was accidentally struck with 1987 D dies, the resulting coin would weigh 3.11 grams instead of 2.50 grams and become an unbelievable rarity. A coin like that would challenge everything collectors thought they knew about minting timelines. Just imagine the reaction if someone discovered a 1987 D copper transitional cent in uncirculated condition. Collectors would lose their minds. Grading companies would rush to certify it. Articles would be written. Videos would go viral. Auction houses would compete fiercely for the right to sell it. And because of the speculative value tied to transitional errors, such a coin could realistically reach millions of dollars. As we move further into the incredible universe surrounding the 1987 D. Lincoln cent, the deeper we go, the more we begin to see how something so small, so ordinary, so overlooked could also be something extraordinary, rare, valuable, and full of hidden stories waiting to be uncovered. Every collector who has ever sorted through rolls of pennies knows the feeling of anticipation, the quiet hope that something special is hiding inside the next coin. And the 1987 D cent embodies that hope more than most people realize. Even with billions minted, even with so many in circulation, the truth is that extremely rare errors remain almost invisible unless someone has the eyes, patience, and passion to search for them. Imagine yourself examining a freshly found 1987 D under a magnifier. At first glance, it looks normal, but then you shift the light slightly and notice an unusual texture near the rim, or the portrait seems offset, or the strike looks uneven. You turn it over, rotate it under the light again, and suddenly the error reveals itself. A misaligned die, a strong die clash, a retained cud, or a tiny doubled element that almost went unnoticed for nearly 4 decades. Moments like that transform ordinary collectors into lifelong enthusiasts, and they remind us why error coins have such powerful emotional and financial value. One of the most intriguing aspects of the 1987 D cent is how errors from this year are so varied. A single search through a handful of coins can reveal everything from tiny chips to dramatic strike anomalies. The variety itself makes this year exciting for collectors. Let's go deeper into some of the rarest and most fascinating possibilities. Consider the partial collar strike. This error occurs when a coin is struck with the collar die only partially engaged. The result is a coin that has a normal rim on one side, but shows an expanded, stretched, or railroad rim appearance on the other. These errors are visually striking and collectible, especially when found on 1987 D cents, since the softer zinc core makes the spreading effect more dramatic. A partial collar that is strong, consistent, and paired with a clean, uncirculated surface can sell for hundreds of dollars depending on severity. Some examples show a perfect railroad track pattern on the rim, creating a unique visual appeal that collectors love. Now consider the broad strike error, which happens when a coin is struck without the retaining collar in place. Without the collar to contain expanding metal, the coin spreads outward, becoming larger in diameter with no defined rim. Broad-struck 1987 D cents can be beautiful and dramatic, especially in high grade where the copper plating remains intact and the surface shines with full mint luster. A broad strike combined with off-center elements or misaligned dies becomes even more valuable. A dramatic broad strike that is perfectly round and fully uncirculated can easily command impressive premiums. But perhaps the most visually stunning errors of all are the double denomination strikes. These occur when a coin receives a strike intended for a different denomination. For example, if a struck dime accidentally gets fed into a cent press and receives a second strike by cent dies, the result is a bizarre, extremely rare hybrid showing impressions from both coin types. These errors are among the most valuable in the hobby because they are virtually impossible to fake and extremely difficult for the mint to accidentally produce. A double denomination error involving a 1987 D cent would immediately draw national attention from collectors, grading companies, and auction houses. Even a basic double denomination cent error involving a dime or nickel planchet can push values into the tens of thousands. Imagine a 1987 D cent double struck on a dime planchet with both dates clearly visible, one from the dime and one from the cent die. The rarity of such a coin cannot be overstated. It would become legendary overnight, instantly setting records if it ever appeared at auction. And the idea that such a coin could theoretically exist adds to the mystique surrounding this year. Next, think about the full split planchet error. Because zinc is brittle, there have been rare cases where a planchet splits before or after striking. When it splits before striking, the die impression hits only part of the surface, leaving the other half raw and unstruck. Split planchets create extremely dramatic surfaces with exposed zinc, jagged edges, and incomplete design elements. These errors often look unlike anything else produced by the mint and can be incredibly valuable to collectors who specialize in dramatic anomalies. A perfectly preserved split planchet 1987 D in uncirculated condition would be a museum-level piece because zinc errors rarely survive without corrosion. Now imagine stacking multiple errors on top of each other. A split planchet combined with a misaligned die, paired with a minor doubled element. Such combinations create hybrid errors that are visually unique and financially explosive. Many collectors search exclusively for multi-error pieces because the rarity increases exponentially with each additional anomaly. Then there's the enigmatic struck-through grease error. These errors occur when grease or debris fills the recesses of the die, preventing full design transfer. A coin struck through heavy grease might have missing letters, faint dates, or partially erased design elements that almost make the coin look ghosted or blank in certain areas. A strong struck-through grease error can be eerily beautiful, giving the coin an artistic softness and making Lincoln's portrait appear faded or floating. Error collectors love these mysterious-looking pieces, especially when the grease strike-through alters key design areas like the date, mint mark, or important features of the Lincoln Memorial. Imagine finding in 1987 D where the entire motto "I in God, we trust" appears faint, ghostly, or partially missing because the grease in the die clogged the letters. A dramatic, grease-filled strike on a zinc cent from the 1980s can become extremely desirable because it is so visually different from standard circulation strikes. Let's now turn toward the collector psychology behind what makes these coins valuable. Collectors often ask why someone would pay thousands, tens of thousands, or even the rumored hundreds of millions for a rare error. It comes down to the idea of owning something truly unique. When billions of coins exist, owning something that exists only once becomes an irresistible opportunity. A one-of-one coin transcends normal market logic. It becomes art, history, rarity, and prestige wrapped into one. Think about the famous 1943 bronze cent. It exists purely because of a transitional error, and only a handful of examples have ever been documented. One sold for over $1 million because of its impossible nature. The same applies to the 1974 aluminum cent, the 2000 Sacagawea Cheerios dollar, and many others. In each case, the value was driven not by the metal content or the age of the coin, but by the story behind it. Now imagine someone discovering a 1987 D Lincoln cent that breaks the boundaries of known minting conditions, something that contradicts everything collectors thought they knew about the mint's production that year. A coin struck on copper, or a coin struck on an experimental alloy, or a coin struck with mismatched dies. Any one of these anomalies could be a once-in-a-century discovery. And if the right collector with deep pockets wanted it badly enough, the price could theoretically reach astronomical levels. This is where the $234 million rumor comes in, a number not grounded in any verified sale, but representing a theoretical maximum value for a hypothetical, ultra-unique, never-seen-before mint error that captures the imagination of the most elite collectors on the planet. Whether or not such a coin exists, the possibility alone fuels excitement and motivates collectors to keep searching. Now consider how many 1987 D pennies are still out there. Millions sit in jars, drawers, banks, storage boxes, and forgotten containers. Many haven't been examined carefully in decades. Hidden among them could be errors that no one has ever documented. Unknown double dies. Unknown off-center strikes that were never reported. Unknown base metal anomalies. Unknown transitional pieces. Unknown brockage that never made it into circulation. The mystery of the unknown is what drives collectors, and the 1987 D year is rich with that potential. As we continue exploring the deep and fascinating world surrounding the 1987 D Lincoln cent, the story becomes even more intriguing when we look at the way collectors, dealers, grading companies, and auction houses view these coins. The market for Lincoln cents is enormous and constantly evolving. What was once considered common suddenly becomes desirable when new information, new discoveries, and new demand appear. And the 1987 D is no exception in many ways. It is one of the most overlooked yet opportunity-rich coins in modern U.S. numismatics. One of the most powerful forces that affects coin values is something called rediscovery. When collectors start revisiting a specific year, Whether because of newly found errors, a viral video, a major auction sale, or simply renewed interest, the market shifts dramatically. This is exactly what has happened with other dates like the 1955 double die, the 1969 S double die, the 1995 double die, the 1982 transitional cents, and several others. For decades, some of those coins sat unnoticed until a single discovery changed everything. Once the public became aware, prices exploded almost overnight. The 1987 D penny is currently in the early stages of becoming a rediscovery coin. More and more collectors are turning their attention to it. People are suddenly remembering that 1987 was a year of massive penny production, which means many coins remain unsearched in circulation. And with renewed attention comes renewed value. Collectors want to be the first to find something important. Grading companies start receiving more submissions. Dealers start buying aggressively. All these shifts create a ripple effect, meaning that even common varieties can start gaining premium value. But the real excitement lies not in what is known, but in what is still unknown. You see, the 1987 D has not been fully documented the way earlier decades have been. The numismatic community has not yet uncovered all the potential double dies, misaligned strikes, die gouges, planchet errors, and mint anomalies. Even the major cherry picker guides and error reference books list only a small portion of possible varieties from this year. That means the field is wide open for new discoveries, and new discoveries always equal new value. Imagine for a moment that someone finds a major double die on a 1987 D similar to the famous 1955 double die, a coin where the date is dramatically doubled, the motto appears doubled, or the word liberty shows clear, strong doubling visible even without magnification. If such a variety exists, and there is no rule stating it cannot, it would instantly become one of the most important modern double dies ever recorded. A coin like that could spark a collecting frenzy, causing every 1987 D penny in circulation to be examined. And that one coin, that single discovery, could potentially command six-figure or even seven-figure prices if the doubling is dramatic enough and the coin is preserved in high grade. Now imagine a completely different kind of discovery, perhaps a copper planchet 1987 D penny that somehow escaped quality control during the mint's transition to fully zinc-based cents. This would be the modern equivalent of the legendary 1943 bronze cent. A single copper-struck 1987 D would be unlike anything currently known, and because it would rewrite minting history for that year, it could attract extreme attention from collectors and investors. In the world of theoretical valuations, rare coins with one-of-one survival status have achieved prices that defy logic. When collectors compete to own the only example of something, the sky becomes the limit. And that is how hypothetical coins sometimes gain enormous rumored values. Values like $200 million, $300 million, or more. Not because they have sold for those prices, but because the theoretical bidding environment could reach that level if the right millionaire or billionaire collector decided they wanted it at all costs. Another major factor that adds excitement to 1987 D pennies is the fragile nature of zinc coins. Zinc planchets are far more prone to corrosion, pitting, blistering, and surface bubbles than copper coins. As a result, surviving high-grade examples become rarer every year. Most pennies from the 1980s that were kept in coin jars or humid environments show surface breaks, black spots, or plating issues. That means finding a flawless, fully lustrous, untouched 1987 D in pristine condition is becoming increasingly difficult. Even without errors, a perfect 1987 D graded MS 68 or MS 69 by a top grading company can command extremely high premiums because such flawless zinc coins are exceedingly rare. In fact, the premium jump between MS 67 and MS 68 is enormous. MS 67 might be worth a modest amount, but MS 68 leaps dramatically because the population is so tiny. And MS 69, which is nearly perfect, is almost unheard of for zinc cents of the 1980s. A single MS 69 example could redefine the market for the entire date. Collectors would pay thousands, possibly tens of thousands, to own the top-known example. Grading populations matter, and low populations equal high prices. This is why pristine, untouched rolls of 1987 D cents have suddenly become targets for collectors hoping to find high-grade survivors. But beyond errors in grades, one of the most overlooked aspects is the artistic beauty of the design itself, the Lincoln Memorial Reverse. While many collectors appreciate the modern Union Shield reverse used today, there is a deep nostalgia and elegance associated with the memorial design. Its symmetry, architectural detail, and bold lettering make it one of the most iconic coin designs in American history. And coins from the mid-1980s often show crisp detailing that highlights every column of the memorial. When struck sharply and preserved well, the 1987 D reverse has a sculptural quality that makes it extremely pleasing to the eye. Now picture a collector holding a perfectly struck 1987 D under a bright light. The steps of the Lincoln Memorial appear sharp and well-defined. The tiny statue of Lincoln in the center is visible. The fields around the memorial are smooth and reflective. The lettering United States of America shines brightly, and the motto E pluribus unum stands out crisply. On the obverse, Lincoln's portrait is sharp, the beard well-defined, the hair textured, the cheeks smooth, the bow tie crisp, and the rim fully formed. These small details make a big difference in market value. But something even more interesting happens in the coin world. Nostalgia creates demand. Collectors who grew up in the 1980s or 1990s are now adults with disposable incomes. They want to collect the coins they remember from childhood. They want the pennies they used to find in pocket change, the ones they remember from stores, arcades, video rental shops, and school lunches. For them, the 1987 D penny represents a time capsule of a simpler era, and nostalgia-driven markets can be incredibly strong. This emotional connection fuels collecting interest, and increased interest fuels increased value. As we move deeper into the unfolding story of the 1987 D Lincoln cent, the real power of this coin becomes clearer when we analyze the psychology of the collectors who pursue it. Every coin has a technical side: mint data, metal composition, error varieties. But the true value of a coin is shaped just as much by human emotion, ambition, nostalgia, fear of missing out, and competitive desire. These psychological forces shape markets in dramatic ways, especially when a coin is from a year like 1987, which sits right at the intersection of high mint production, widespread circulation, and rapidly growing collector interest. Collectors are driven by two major motivations: discovery and ownership. Discovery is the thrill of being the first person to find something that others have overlooked. Ownership is the desire to hold something rare, valuable, and historically important. The 1987 D penny satisfies both motivations at the same time. Because it has not been completely studied by the numismatic community, new discoveries are not just possible, they are likely. And when new discoveries appear, ownership demand skyrockets instantly. Imagine a collector searching through 1,000 pennies in a jar and suddenly spotting an anomaly on a 1987 D. Maybe a doubled earlobe, a doubled bow tie, extra thickness on the date, an unexpected die clash behind Lincoln's neck, or a diagonal die crack stretching across the coin from rim to rim like lightning. That moment creates adrenaline, excitement, and fascination. This emotional spark fuels the entire hobby. When collectors share these discoveries online, the excitement spreads, causing more people to search their coins. More searching leads to more discoveries, and more discoveries lead to major market movement. Another psychological factor that heavily influences value is the idea of rarity perception. Even if a coin is not proven rare, the belief that something rare might exist creates powerful interest. With the 1987 D, many collectors believe there are still unknown errors waiting to be discovered because of the huge number of coins produced and the less stringent quality control of the era. Zinc planchets were notorious for plating issues, strike-through debris was common, and die deterioration occurred quickly. All of these are ideal conditions for unique errors to exist today, but what makes the 1987 D even more fascinating is how fragile zinc pennies are. Many collectors underestimate how quickly zinc pennies deteriorate, especially ones from the 1980s. A zinc cent with even tiny plating breaks can begin corroding from the inside. This means most 1987 D pennies in circulation today are already damaged or degraded. Perfect examples become scarcer every year, which pushes the value higher. The rarest coins are not the old ones. The rarest ones are the modern coins that survived without damage. A pristine zinc penny from the 1980s is a miracle of preservation. This is why grading companies put such high premiums on MS 68 or MS 69 examples. The difference between MS 67 and MS 68 may seem small, but the population difference can be enormous. There might be thousands of MS 67 examples, but only a handful of MS 68 coins, and possibly no MS 69 coins at all. The 1987 D fits this pattern perfectly. If one single MS 69 example emerges, it could break price records for modern Lincoln pennies simply because the zinc era makes flawless specimens incredibly rare. When populations are tiny, prices become unpredictable, and unpredictable markets attract aggressive bidders who are willing to pay any price to secure the top-graded example. Another hidden factor that enhances the mystery around the 1987 D is the possibility of transitional or experimental planchets. During the 1980s, the U.S. Mint was still adjusting to zinc-based penny production, and various tests occurred behind the scenes. Although the Mint officially used copper-plated zinc planchets throughout the year, no one can completely rule out the possibility of experimental strikes, leftover copper planchets, misfed planchets, or plating anomalies that might have survived unnoticed. Transitional errors have always become some of the most valuable coins in U.S. history. The 1943 copper cent and the 1944 steel cent are perfect examples. If a transitional 1987 D copper penny exists, even one single example, its value could reach astronomical levels because it would defy mint records, and rewriting mint history always leads to massive collector excitement and sky-high theoretical valuations. But even without such extreme rarities, the 1987 D penny plays an important role in the timeline of U.S. coinage. It is a coin that represents the end of an era in the way people used pennies. In the late 1980s, pennies were still heavily used in everyday transactions. People paid for snacks, arcade machines, public phones, and small items with them. Pennies flowed through stores, gas stations, vending machines, and supermarkets. They were part of daily life. Children collected them, schools used them for math exercises, and banks circulated them in massive quantities. Today, the penny is rarely used in many situations, and more people see it as a novelty rather than a functional part of the economy. This shift gives coins like the 1987 D special sentimental value because they capture the memory of a time when pennies actually mattered. Another interesting aspect that drives value is the competitive culture among collectors. When collectors see others buying, submitting coins for grading, posting discoveries, or talking about rising prices, they feel the urge to join the competition. This wave effect can turn even moderately valuable coins into powerhouse collectibles. Some coins rise in value purely because collectors build momentum around them. And momentum is exactly what the 1987 D has been gaining in recent years. People who once ignored this coin have started examining it closely. Videos highlighting rare errors have reached millions of views. Collectors who never considered mint-mark varieties before are now carefully checking their coins. This collective attention creates a powerful economic force that pushes values higher. In addition to collector psychology, the physical characteristics of the 1987 D penny create layers of potential value enhancement. Zinc pennies often show beautiful variations in color and luster depending on storage conditions. Some develop stunning gold tones, others show deep red brilliance, and some acquire rainbow-like hues under the right lighting. These naturally toned examples can become highly desirable because toning adds individuality. It transforms a common coin into a unique one-of-one piece that attracts collectors seeking beauty as well as rarity. Coins with exceptional eye appeal can sell for many times their normal value, even without major errors. Another visual aspect collectors love is strong strike detail. Not all 1987 D cents were struck equally. Some show weak details because the dies were worn, misaligned, or poorly polished. But some examples were struck early in the die's life, resulting in crisp, bold details. Strongly struck coins show every line of Lincoln's hair, every crease in his coat, every contour of the memorial, and every step on the monument. These well-struck examples capture the artistic strength of the original design in a way that weakly struck coins simply cannot. Collectors will always pay more for coins that exhibit this sharpness. But the most exciting part is this. Millions of 1987 D cents remain unsearched. They sit in jars, drawers, old bags, forgotten bank boxes, sealed rolls, and inherited collections. And every one of those coins is a potential treasure. Every single unsearched 1987 D penny holds the possibility of containing an undiscovered variety, a major error, a perfect high-grade example, a rare strike, or even a hypothetical transitional planchet. The unknown potential is enormous, and that potential is what keeps collectors motivated. As we continue unfolding the deeper layers of the 1987 D penny, the story becomes even more fascinating when we examine how this coin behaves in long-term market cycles and why collectors, investors, and even casual hobbyists suddenly become interested in coins that were once considered ordinary pocket change. Every coin has a life cycle in the collector market. It begins unnoticed, then slowly gains attention. Then collectors start to analyze it. Then errors begin to surface. Then prices rise. Then grading submissions increase. Then top-tier examples reach record prices. And suddenly the entire collecting world shifts its focus in that direction. The 1987 D penny is currently rising through this cycle, which is why its value potential is increasing more dramatically than many people realize. There is something especially compelling about coins from the late 1980s. They exist in a kind of overlooked zone between the old copper era and the modern era of advanced minting technology. These coins were produced during a time when mint quality control was in transition, when zinc planchets were still relatively new, and when minting machinery was undergoing gradual upgrades. This transitional environment creates the perfect storm for valuable errors, unique strike anomalies, and rare varieties. The 1987 D belongs precisely in this sweet spot, old enough to have mint imperfections, but modern enough that high-grade survivors are rare. One of the forces that will continue to push the 1987 D penny toward long-term value growth is the slow increase in submissions to grading companies. When collectors begin sending more coins from a specific year, it tells the market that interest is rising. The grading companies publish population reports, and collectors study those reports closely. When they see extremely low populations for high-grade examples, particularly MS 68 and MS 69, they begin to understand that this coin has enormous rarity at the top end. This rarity draws investors because investors prefer coins that show low supply and strong demand. And while millions of 1987 D pennies exist, only a microscopic number will ever qualify as top-graded gems. The market always separates common coins from elite coins, and the elite ones are the ones that break auction records. The penny market has seen this pattern before. Coins like the 1983 double die reverse, the 1999 wide AM, the 1998 and 2000 wide AM varieties, and the 1982 small date copper coin all went from being pocket change to major collectibles because collectors discovered something new, something unexpected, something that created a burst of enthusiasm. The 1987 D is primed for the same type of transformation because the majority of the public has still not searched this date thoroughly. And that gap between what is known and what is unknown is where value grows the fastest. Another powerful factor pushing the 1987 D higher in attention is the rising popularity of coin hunting culture. Millions of people now watch videos about rare pennies, error coins, and valuable finds in circulation. Social media has turned coin collecting into a global hobby that spans from beginners to advanced professionals. When a coin starts getting mentioned repeatedly on social platforms, the excitement spreads exponentially. Videos about rare pennies have reached tens of millions of views, and every time a new video surfaces showing a valuable find, people rush to search their own coins. This creates a tidal wave of interest that lifts even common years like 1987 D into the spotlight. The interesting part about this phenomenon is that it does not require a new discovery to begin. It only requires a surge in awareness. When people become aware that the 1987 D penny exists in multiple error varieties such as die cracks, die chips, cuds, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, rotated dies, plated planchet defects, and strike-through errors, they begin searching more carefully. And the more carefully people search, the more discoveries they make. Even small errors, which might have been ignored in previous decades, now gain value because collectors seek examples that tell the story of how the coin was minted. The zinc composition of the 1987 D adds yet another layer of interest. Because zinc is prone to bubbling, plating blisters, and internal corrosion, coins with strong, original surfaces become highly desirable. A zinc coin in pristine condition is like a delicate artifact that somehow escaped the natural decay that affects millions of others. This fragility creates condition scarcity, which is the foundation of premium pricing. Coins that retain their original luster, beautiful red surfaces, and full strike details become the elite survivors of their generation. These coins are what collectors dream of owning, and the competition for them intensifies as more people realize how rare they truly are. Another area that collectors often overlook is the visual artistry of natural toning. Zinc scents can develop rich gold colors, deep amber hues, or even vibrant rainbow patterns. These tones can elevate a coin's desirability dramatically because they create individuality. A naturally toned 1987 D that displays beautiful iridescence can attract intense bidding from collectors who appreciate aesthetic beauty. The eye appeal of a toning pattern can transform a modestly priced coin into one worth many times more, especially when combined with high grade and error characteristics. Eye appeal is one of the strongest hidden market forces, because collectors will always pay more for a coin that is visually stunning. But beyond condition, error potential, artistic toning, and the nostalgia factor, the 1987 D penny represents something deeper, an era of American life that has vanished. It carries with it the imprint of a time when pennies were used constantly every day. It passed through the hands of store clerks, school children, families, bus riders, cashiers, and workers. It existed in a world before smartphones, before digital payments, before swipe cards became the norm. Every penny from 1987 is a tiny historic artifact from a decade filled with cultural change, economic shifts, and technology in its early stages. Collectors cherish coins not only for rarity, but also for the stories they carry, and the story of the 1987 D is just beginning to be written. The more collectors investigate this coin, the more varieties will surface. The more varieties that surface, the more the coin will be studied. The more it is studied, the more attention it gets. And the more attention it gets, the higher the market value climbs. Some coins take decades to rise to prominence, but they always rise eventually. The 1987 D stands at the edge of such a rise, driven by a powerful combination of collector psychology, rarity potential, unsearched supplies, nostalgic appeal, and the fragile zinc era that makes pristine survivors incredibly valuable. In the end, the 1987 D is becoming a symbol of overlooked potential in modern coinage. It is a reminder that even a simple penny can become a treasure when collectors take the time to uncover its mysteries, study its origins, appreciate its details, and explore its hidden possibilities. And with every passing year, as more examples wear away, as more zinc coins corrode, as more collectors search for the best examples, the 1987 D slowly but steadily transforms from ordinary to extraordinary, from common to collectible, from overlooked to iconic. As the journey into the world of the 1987 D Lincoln cent grows deeper, the coin begins to reveal not just its physical traits and market behavior, but its meaning within the broader timeline of American collecting culture. The rise of interest in coins like the 1987 D shows how modern coinage is entering a new era of appreciation. Now more than ever, collectors are waking up to the fact that modern-era pennies, once dismissed as common and unremarkable, hold secrets that have been overlooked for decades. And the 1987 D cent stands at the forefront of this awakening, becoming a symbol of the hidden value that lies beneath the surface of everyday pocket change. The beauty of this coin is that it bridges two worlds: the traditional numismatic world focused on older, classic coins, and the growing modern coin community that searches for previously undocumented errors, high-grade survivors, and unique anomalies. The 1987 D sits right in between these two collecting mindsets. To older collectors, It represents a period when pennies were still meaningful and widely used. To younger collectors who grew up in the digital age, it represents a new frontier of discoveries waiting to be made. And this dual appeal is rare. It allows the 1987 D to attract attention from both ends of the collector spectrum, something very few modern coins manage to do. Another powerful driving force is the rise of amateur numismatists, ordinary people who have begun searching their change, checking rolls from the bank, inspecting inherited jars of coins, and participating in online discussions about rare pennies. This expanding population of casual collectors has dramatically changed the market. Every week, thousands of people discover that ordinary-looking coins can be worth serious money. When one person finds a valuable error or high-grade coin, it motivates thousands more to begin searching. And as the number of people searching increases, the number of discoveries does too. The 1987 D benefits heavily from this movement because so much unsearched material still remains in homes, banks, and forgotten storage boxes. This rising community also contributes to another major phenomenon, the viral coin discovery. Social media has turned simple coin finds into massive moments of excitement. When someone posts a photo of a strange mint error on a 1987 D penny, whether it's a die crack resembling a lightning bolt, a large die chip near the date, a dramatic plating bubble that formed a unique shape, or a strong off-center strike, thousands of viewers become fascinated, and many instantly begin searching their own coins. These viral discoveries continually reignite interest, pushing the 1987 D into the spotlight over and over again. And with each new moment of attention, the perceived value and potential of the coin grow stronger. Collectors are also drawn by the mystery of what has not yet been found. With older coins, most major discoveries have already surfaced and been documented. But modern zinc coins like the 1987 D still hold secrets. They were minted in enormous quantities, and their fragile nature means that surviving varieties and errors could easily be missed. The minting technology of the time allowed for subtle but significant mistakes to occur, such as double dies that were never recorded, misaligned die varieties that slipped through unnoticed, or experimental planchets that may have been struck unintentionally. Even the possibility of discovering a single unique anomaly fuels the hunt. The unknown is one of the greatest motivators in the hobby. The thrill of believing a rare and valuable variety might still be out there keeps people searching with intensity. To understand the rising value potential of the 1987 D, one must also look at how economic cycles influence coin collecting. During times when people seek tangible assets, when inflation rises, or when physical collectibles regain popularity, the coin market strengthens. Coins have always been seen as both historical artifacts and stable items of value. And modern coins are especially appealing because they are accessible. Anyone can participate without needing large investments. This accessibility is what makes coins like the 1987 D powerful because they enter the hands of ordinary people who then gradually become serious collectors as they learn more. Another core reason the 1987 D is gaining traction is the shifting trend in numismatics towards specialization. Instead of collecting broad sets, many collectors now focus deeply on specific errors, specific years, or specific mint marks. Specialists are the ones who elevate the status of a coin because they build demand through focused study. As more specialists begin examining Lincoln cents from the 1980s, more varieties are discovered, more reference books get updated, and the attention on these years increases. When a single year gains a strong specialist community, its long-term value becomes much more stable and predictable. The 1987 D is beginning to attract such a community. When discussing long-term value, it is also important to consider the emotional connection that collectors form with certain years. For many people who grew up in the 1980s or early 1990s, the 1987 D penny carries memories of childhood, school days, family trips, candy store purchases, and the excitement of receiving change from a dollar bill. This emotional bond creates a powerful nostalgic market that grows stronger as the generation ages. Coins from childhood become souvenirs of simpler times. This nostalgia-driven value is one of the most underestimated forces in numismatics, but is one of the strongest, especially for modern coins. When nostalgia meets rarity, prices climb rapidly. Another key reason for the rising prominence of the 1987 D is the increased awareness of how difficult it is to maintain zinc pennies in high-grade condition. Copper coins naturally age better. Zinc, on the other hand, is unstable, reactive, and prone to hidden internal corrosion. Even coins that appear fine on the surface can deteriorate over time. This natural decay creates a dramatic reduction in the population of pristine survivors. Collectors now understand that they must act quickly if they want to preserve high-quality examples, because every year more and more zinc cents become damaged beyond collectability. This urgency makes surviving high-grade coins far more desirable. Even more interesting is how each individual error type contributes to market desirability. For instance, die cracks and die chips give each coin a personality. No two cracks look exactly alike, and some are striking enough to attract premium buyers. Off-center strikes have always been highly collectible, and the 1987 D off-centers are particularly attractive because their zinc surfaces often show crisp details around the misalignment. Rotated dies add a dramatic visual twist, making the coin instantly stand out in a collection. Strike-through errors tell the story of mint debris, fabric, grease, or metal fragments that accidentally became part of the coin-making process. Plating bubbles and blisters add texture and uniqueness, especially when they form unusual shapes. All these individual characteristics turn ordinary pennies into miniature works of minting history. As collectors continue discovering new 1987 D errors, each new find adds to the story of the year. These discoveries form a chain of excitement and knowledge that grows longer with each passing year. The more discoveries made, the more valuable the date becomes, not just monetarily, but historically. Each error adds a small piece to the narrative of what happened at the Denver Mint that year, how the dies were handled, how the machinery operated, and how the mint responded to the challenges of striking billions of zinc coins with varying degrees of success. In many ways, the 1987 D penny symbolizes the future of coin collecting. It proves that modern coins are not boring. They are rich with untapped value, undiscovered varieties, and hidden potential. It shows that a coin does not need to be old to be valuable. It only needs to be special, rare in certain conditions, unexplored, or emotionally meaningful to collectors. And the 1987 D fits all these criteria perfectly. As the exploration of the 1987 D Lincoln cent continues, the story of this coin moves into a more profound phase, one that connects collectors not just to the coin itself, but to the entire world that surrounds it. The more we understand the forces shaping this penny, the clearer it becomes that its true value lies far beyond the metal it was struck on. It lies in the growing ecosystem of interest, discovery, market demand, emotional connection, and unfolding history that continues to evolve around it. And in this expanding universe of knowledge, the 1987 D cent becomes a central character, a coin that speaks to both the past and the future of numismatics. One of the strongest reasons the 1987 D keeps rising in attention is the increasingly competitive landscape of modern coin grading. In the earlier decades of coin collecting, most collectors were satisfied with coins that simply looked clean or decent. But today, grading companies like PCGS and NGC have transformed the hobby into a precision-driven field where even slight differences in surface quality, strike sharpness, luster, and planchet condition can dramatically change a coin's value. And because the 1987 D is a zinc coin, every microscopic flaw becomes magnified during grading. That means finding a truly flawless example is nearly impossible, and when such an example does appear, it becomes a treasure like no other. Collectors have come to appreciate how fragile the zinc-based Lincoln cents are. Unlike earlier copper pennies that can survive for centuries with little damage, zinc cents are prone to bubbling, peeling, corrosion, discoloration, and internal decay. Even brand-new rolls that were sealed decades ago may contain coins with invisible structural issues that have worsened over time. This is why high-grade survivors from the late 1980s are becoming extremely scarce. The 1987 D in MS 67 or MS 68 is not simply rare, it is rare by nature of the material itself. And because of this natural rarity, the demand for top-graded specimens continues to grow year after year. Another element that boosts the long-term value potential of the 1987 D cent is the changing mindset of collectors. Today's collectors are more informed, more curious, and more driven than ever. They are not satisfied with basic surface-level information. They dive deep into mint records, die usage charts, production timelines, and metallurgical studies. They examine coins under microscopes, digital scanning devices, and high-resolution photography. This new generation of collectors is discovering details that were completely overlooked for decades. Whether it is a minor double die that was dismissed as worthless or a barely visible die clash that went unnoticed for years, modern technology gives collectors the ability to identify varieties with incredible accuracy. This flood of new information continues to elevate the 1987 D, revealing layers of complexity beneath its seemingly simple appearance. And the more details collectors uncover, the more complete the picture of the coin's production history becomes. For example, Denver Mint's high-speed presses in the 1980s were operating under tremendous strain to meet enormous production quotas. The pressure to strike billions of pennies every year resulted in accelerated die wear, increased production anomalies, and a higher probability of striking errors. These conditions make the 1987 D an incredibly rich field for variety hunters. Every die crack becomes a snapshot of the mint's equipment under stress. Every uneven strike tells the story of machinery functioning at maximum capacity. Every plating blister demonstrates the challenges of working with zinc planchets during a period when America was still adjusting to the new material. These little imperfections, once viewed as flaws, are now understood as evidence of the coin's historical environment. Beyond the physical traits of the 1987 D, another powerful factor shaping its market is the psychology of collectors. Human beings are naturally attracted to the idea of finding something valuable in an unexpected place. This desire to discover hidden treasures is deeply rooted in numismatics. The thrill of pulling a rare error out of a roll or discovering an uncirculated gem in pocket change is unmatched. The 1987 D is perfectly suited for this kind of excitement because it is common enough to still appear in circulation, yet rare enough in high grades and certain error types to make every find feel special. This balance between accessibility and rarity keeps collectors engaged and constantly searching. The rising popularity of coin roll hunting has also breathed new life into modern pennies like the 1987 D. Millions of rolls are still sitting in banks, coin machines, and private collections, untouched for decades. Every roll opened today is like a miniature time capsule containing coins that were minted nearly 40 years ago. Many of these rolls were packed straight from the mint and stashed away without being inspected. This means fresh discoveries are always possible. The awareness that the next big variety or high-value error could be lying hidden in an unopened roll creates endless anticipation. It is this anticipation that fuels the growing market for 1987 D finds. Another reason for the increasing attention to the 1987 D is its role in telling the story of America's economic transition. When the United States switched from copper to zinc cents in 1982, it wasn't just a change in metal. It reflected the nation's economic pressures, rising metal costs, and new manufacturing strategies. Every zinc cent minted in the years that followed carries the legacy of that transition. The 1987 D represents a period when the U.S. Mint was still adapting to the full-time production of zinc coins. It reflects the challenges, the experimentation, the adjustments, and the growing pains of a mint trying to maintain quality while producing billions of coins. Collectors who focus on historical narratives are increasingly drawn to these transitional era coins because they capture an important chapter in America's economic story. In the modern collecting world, community-driven enthusiasm plays a huge role in shaping a coin's value. The 1987 D benefits massively from the Internet Age community, a powerful collective of collectors who share discoveries, compare varieties, debate errors, upload videos, and exchange information every day. Social platforms, online marketplaces, and dedicated coin forums create nonstop discussion. Photos of dramatic errors, shiny uncirculated examples, or rare die varieties instantly circulate across thousands of screens. This constant exposure elevates interest and pushes more collectors to start searching for the same coin. The 1987 D thrives in this environment because it is abundant enough to allow widespread participation, yet complex enough to create endless discussion and discovery. That as collectors continue to study this coin in greater detail, its long-term value becomes clearer. Coins with strong community support, constant research, emotional appeal, historical significance, grading scarcity, and ongoing discovery consistently rise in value over the decades. These coins don't just fade away, they grow stronger with time. The 1987 D possesses every one of these characteristics. It is not just a piece of change. It is an evolving collectible with a future that becomes more promising each year. Every part of the coin, its metal, its design, its minting environment, its circulation history, its errors, its surviving condition, contributes to a story still being written. The fact that new varieties and new errors are still being discovered today is proof that the 1987 D is far from fully explored. The more collectors dig into this year, the more treasures they find, and each treasure adds value to the entire date. And now, as we enter the final stretch of this deep journey into the world of the 1987 D Lincoln set, everything we have uncovered begins to weave itself into one complete picture. A picture not just of a single coin, but of a moment in time, a transformation in minting history, a shift in collector psychology, and a rising market that continues to expand with every passing year. The 1987 D penny, once brushed aside as a simple piece of pocket change, now stands revealed as a coin with layers of value, complexity, rarity, and storytelling power that place it among the most intriguing modern cents in the entire Lincoln series. And this final chapter ties together everything the collectors of today and tomorrow need to understand about why this coin continues to soar in value and fascination. What makes the 1987 D so remarkable is not simply its errors, nor its low surviving population in top grades, nor even the nostalgic appeal of the era it represents. What gives this coin true power is the way all these elements interact. You cannot separate its fragile zinc composition from its long-term potential. You cannot separate its minting anomalies from the chaotic production era that created them. You cannot separate its rising auction values from the emotional connection collectors feel toward coins from the late 20th century. It is this convergence of factors that makes the 1987 D a modern treasure waiting to be fully recognized. As collectors continue examining this coin, they are discovering that it behaves almost like a bridge, connecting the old world of copper pennies with the modern world of zinc-based coinage. It captures the struggles of a mint adapting to new technology, the flaws of an evolving manufacturing process, and the resilience of a design that had already endured for decades. The portrait of Lincoln on this coin has watched more than a century of American history, but in 1987 it witnessed something different. A nation changing its currency at a fundamental level, exchanging tradition for necessity as rising metal prices forced new solutions. Every 1987 D penny carries the weight of that moment. And yet, despite being minted in massive numbers, the 1987 D has proven itself to be one of the most unpredictable coins of its era. The zinc planchets used in that period were unstable, and countless coins have already deteriorated. Many have corroded from within, leaving only a fraction of the original population intact. Even fewer survive in untouched, pristine, mint-state condition. That means every gem-level 1987 D is not just a survivor, it is an extreme survivor. A coin that has beaten time, chemistry, circulation, humidity, accidental damage, mishandling, and the natural decay that attacks nearly every zinc cent eventually. Collectors who understand this secret are already ahead of the market. They know that scarcity is defined not by how many coins were minted, but by how many have survived in desirable condition. They know that every decade that passes will only increase the rarity of high-grade zinc cents as more examples deteriorate beyond recovery. That is why the 1987 D is not just a collectible, it is a time-sensitive opportunity. The window to find pristine examples is shrinking every year, and those who recognize this are positioning themselves for future value growth. The error potential of the 1987 D adds yet another dimension to its rising status. Each error tells a story written directly into the metal, A die crack showing where the mint's machinery strained under pressure. A die chip revealing the point where the tool broke down. An off-center strike exposing a moment of misalignment. A strike-through capturing a piece of debris in the instant of minting. A plating blister mapping out the instability of zinc-coated copper. These errors transform a common coin into a unique piece of minting history. They give collectors something that is one of one, something no other person can own, something that turns a penny into a prized artifact. And behind all of this is the modern collector community, an unstoppable force of curiosity and enthusiasm. Every day, new videos, new posts, new discoveries, new roll hunts, and new identifications spread across the world. A rare error found in one country becomes known within hours to collectors everywhere. A single high-grade coin reaching a record price can ignite a wave of searching and collecting. The 1987 D benefits enormously from this modern connectivity, gaining attention in ways that older generations of collectors could never have imagined. The more people talk about this coin, the more its legend grows, and the more its market value rises. Even emotional connection plays its part. For many collectors, 1987 was a year filled with memories, school days, family moments, real-world challenges, historic events, and cultural milestones. The coins from that year become symbols of those memories. Holding a 1987 D penny is like holding a small piece of your own past, a reminder of a time before technology reshaped the world. Collectors cherish these connections, and emotional value always enhances monetary value. As the story of the 1987 D reaches its conclusion, one thing becomes unmistakably clear. This coin is not done rising. It is not done surprising collectors. It is not done revealing new varieties. It is not done breaking price expectations. It is still in the early stages of its growth cycle, and the market conditions around it are only getting stronger. Every time a new discovery is made, every time a high-grade coin appears at auction, every time a collector uploads a video about a rare error, the 1987 D steps closer to its place among the most sought-after modern Lincoln cents. And so, the final message is simple but powerful. Never underestimate the potential of a coin just because it looks ordinary. Never assume a penny has no value just because millions were minted. Never overlook a year simply because it feels recent. The 1987 D proves that treasure does not always come from ancient history or rare metals. Sometimes treasure is hiding in plain sight, in your pocket, in an old jar, in a forgotten roll, in a box tucked away in a drawer. The next valuable 1987 D could be anywhere, waiting for someone with curiosity and patience to discover it.